Hello, this is Chiron Nebulisa again, and today we'll be going over process validation and the overview of the 2011 process validation guidance document. So in this section, we'll discuss the regulatory framework that constitutes the foundation for this document. We'll identify products that are addressing the scope of this guidance document, and we'll identify categories of computer systems that need to be validated. So of course, as we've been discussing, process validation, of course, is regulated by the FDA, U.S. Food and Drug Administration. So the 2011 process validation guidance document does the following. It defines the lifecycle-based approach to process validation. It goes over the collection and evaluation of data from process design to production. It's a series of activities defined in 3 stages, including process design, process qualification, and continued process verification. It goes over recommendations to use scientific tools such as QDB, PAT, and risk assessment. There's no specific recommendation regarding the number of PPQ batches, and validation is not a one-time activity, and 3 consecutive batches may not provide assurance of process reproducibility. So this kind of gives you an overview of process validation. A lot of times people, the guideline is to do 3 PPQ batches, but this is saying that just because you do 3 consecutive batches and you pass it doesn't necessarily mean your process is in control. It doesn't give specific recommendations on number of batches, but I guess each organization is ultimately responsible for being able to distinguish or determine what is acceptable for their as far as their process and the controls they have in place. But the process validation guidance document kind of just gives you a high-level overview on what to do, and it's up to the individual company and specific process experts to determine what is feasible. So this gives a high-level overview of the process validation guidance document. So of course, coming from the FDA, you have 21 CFR parts 211, 210, which gives you the regulations. Then you have your guidance documents such as your PAT, your approach. Then you go into your process validation, which you go into your risk-based approach and final report. And then what we're focusing on right now is the 2011, which goes over the Q7, Q8, Q9, Q10, etc. Pretty much how you're supposed to actually do your validation, verification, and how to make sure that you're keeping your process and your facility within the scope and within the validated realms of what you've intended to validate. So the 2011 process validation guidance regulatory basis. So CFR 2011-180, ongoing data review and evaluation. So written records required by this part shall be maintained so that data therein can be used for evaluating at least annually the quality standards of each drug product to determine the need for changes in drug product specifications or manufacturing control procedures. So this is just saying, like I've discussed before, if you didn't write it down, it didn't happen. So you need to make sure you have your written records so that you can use it for your continual evaluation. If you don't have that, I mean, there's no way for you to evaluate what you've been doing and how to improve. So you need those written records for ongoing data review and evaluation. Next, it goes over 2011-110, requirement to meet specifications. So valid in-process specifications for such characteristics shall be consistent with drug product final specifications and should be derived from previous acceptable process average and process variability estimates where possible and determined by the application of suitable statistical procedures where appropriate. Examination and testing of samples shall ensure that the drug product and in-process material conform to specifications. So another part of it is you have to meet specifications, you have to define your parameters where you're going to test for, you have to do your in-process testing, and you have to have your acceptable criteria so that when you get your results, you can determine did your testing meet your specifications. And if it didn't meet, you have to come up with a reason as to what happened and how you're going to solve it and to fix the situation. So you have to have specifications and you have to meet those specifications on a continuous basis. Next, CFR 2011-100A, written procedures. There should be written procedures for production and process control designed to assure that the drug products have the identity, strength, quality, and purity. Again, procedures need to be written, and people need to follow these procedures to ensure that your process is in control and it has the right identity, strength, quality, and purity. CFR 2011-110A, validation foundation. To assure batch uniformity and integrity of drug products, written procedures shall be established and followed that describe the in-process controls and tests or examinations to be conducted on appropriate samples of in-process materials of each batch. Such control procedures shall be established to monitor the output and to validate the performance of those manufacturing processes that may be responsible for causing variability and the characteristics of in-process material in the drug product. So this is just saying that you have to have the validation foundation and have the controls in place in order to have the foundation to start your validation. And then you can, with your in-process samples and the results of your materials of each batch, you can kind of adjust and make changes, but you have to have that foundation in place. Requirement to meet specifications. For each batch of a drug product, there should be an appropriate laboratory determination of satisfactory conformance to final specifications for the drug product, including the identity and strength of each active ingredient prior to release. So again, if you're making a product and before you release it, you need to test it in order and have specifications so that when you get your test back that you can determine, hey, our final product, it meets our standards or it doesn't. So you need to have those requirements set in place, and that's part of your process validation. Next is appropriate valid sampling. Determination of conformance to written descriptions of sampling procedures and appropriate specifications for drug products. Such samples shall be representative and properly identified. So this is just going on and saying that you have to have appropriate sampling during specific steps, during high critical steps, and throughout your process, you need to make sure you have your appropriate and valid sampling to ensure that your process is conforming correctly. CFR 2011-165C, any sampling and testing plan shall be described in written procedures that shall include the method of sampling and the number of units per batch to be tested. Such written procedures shall be followed. So this is just saying that you just can't sample just for the heck of it. You have to have a sampling plan in place that clearly describes where in the process that you're going to sample, how much you're going to sample, when exactly you're going to pull the sample, etc. So your sampling plan and testing plan should be defined before you go into your validation, so that you know where you're going to sample and it's clearly outlined and defined, so that if there's any issues or questions, you know exactly when and where it happened. So your sampling plan should be established before you go into your validation. Statistical validity / confidence. Acceptance criteria for the sampling and testing conducted by the quality control unit shall be adequate to ensure that batches of drug product meet each appropriate specification. The statistical quality control criteria should include appropriate acceptance level or appropriate rejection levels. So again, with your testing, going into statistical quality, if you're accepting, you need to know your acceptance levels. If you're rejecting, you need to know your rejection levels, so that it's clear that when you get your results, you know whether it passed or it failed. Statistical validity / confidence. Any building or buildings used in the manufacture, processing, packing, or holding of a drug product shall be of suitable size, construction, and location to facilitate cleaning, maintenance, and proper operations. So this is just more going into the build, what you're going to use, where you're going to manufacture. It has to be of suitable size, construction, and location, so that you prevent any cross-contamination because you want to make sure that how you're constructing and how you're manufacturing is preventing any contamination. So it has to be a suitable size of construction. So this is what this is talking about.